the Russian north, snowy, wild and cold. This is exactly how many people imagine it, as a land without life and joy. But what if I say that there is a place for a real little dream, a unique and unusual steam train in the snowy forest, as though it's the very train that goes to Hogwarts. And this is not a fairy tale but a reality. The Ruskeala Express in Karelia Republic in Russia. I've never wanted to visit Karelia, but what I definitely wanted to do is to take a ride on this unique train. Is it worth to leave your comfort zone and travel to the far north in winter in Russia? Let's find out, because today I'm going on my expedition to Karelia Republic, Russian Finland. Karelia is a region with ancient forests, clear lakes and powerful cliffs. This is the northwest of the European part of Russia. People come here to take a break from the city and to touch nature, to live by the lake, pick mushrooms and berries, go boating. It's a land of rocks and thousands of lakes, and half of the region is occupied by forests. I didn't even imagine that after going to Karelia Republic I would get into a real winter fairy tale, because on my trip there was a heavy snowfall. In winter the days in Russia are very short, and the further north you go, the shorter the day. But despite this, it's not cold here. Frosts are relatively easy to tolerate, because the powerful Karelian forests reliably protect from cold winds. I started my journey by a night train from Moscow to Petrozavodsk, the largest city and the capital of Karelia Republic. The train arrives at the Soviet railway station, which is the most beautiful Soviet heritage that you can find in this city. Petrozavodsk is a typical provincial city in Russia, with both Lenin and Soviet buildings. But there is also something unusual: wooden houses and new ones under construction next to them. The city center is full of wooden houses, and this is because of Finnish past of the city. The city doesn't look like a capital, but rather a transit point for further trips around the region. I would say that Karelia doesn't have a capital because all the riches of the region are far from the city. I came here to travel further across Karelia Republic and take a ride on that very train. I'll show you the train later, but now let's explore Petrozavodsk, the capital of Karelia. The architecture in the city is very different. Soviet houses, historical buildings, pre-revolutionary wooden houses, panels and new buildings. And all this is combined with the nature of Karelia. That's the most fancy
fast food point you ever seen. This is rustic, and just look how gorgeous this building is. It is one of fast food point in this city. Here I found an interesting statue devoted to the question what's the first, the chicken or an egg? And there is a man thinking about this problem. And here I found the bird feed on the trees.
There are a lot of parks here, and also I noticed that the locals really like to walk their dogs. Sometimes they are northern dogs, like this. Surprisingly, but right in the center of the city in the park, the noise of the street is muffled. It's very quiet and peacefully, a murmuring river, huge trees, a lot of ducks, as though I am no longer in the city at all but in nature. I was also surprised by how many ducks here in winter. I have no idea what all of them are doing here in winter and why they are not in the south. Here in the depths of the park you can find the buildings of the Onega tractor plant. Previously there was an arm factory at this place and the history of the city began with it. Peter the Great founded Petrozavodsk on the same day as St. Petersburg, but instead of palaces he placed an arm factory here, which is where the city's name came from, Peter's factory.
This is the place where the city originates its start. This is the weapon plant.
But the city's factory history is in the past, and now the city is proud of its universities and settlers. In fact, Petrozavodsk is one of the most cultured in Russia. It's not surprising that there are 3 settlers on 1 Kiev square at once, a musical, a national, and a puppet setter. I went to the musical center to see the famous ballet The Nutcracker with artists from St. Petersburg, and the hall was almost full. Not only the ballet is beautiful, but also the theater building itself, both inside and outside. Just look at the chandeliers here, it's so enormous. The sculptures on the facade of the musical theater symbolize the friendship of the Russian and Karelian people and remind of VDNH, exhibition of achievements of national economy in Moscow. The National Theater puts on plays in Russian, Finnish, Karelian and Vapsian languages. The last one is the language of people who lived here before. There is one large university in the city, and opposite it is a fountain fullerene molecule, one of the symbols of the city. Fullerene is a molecule consisting of carbon atoms that have been discovered recently. It's called the most beautiful molecule in the universe, and the price per gram reaches $150 million. It was found in Shanghai rocks, which are also found on the territory of Karelia Republic.
Now I'm on Lenin Street. That's the main street in the city. And if you go down the street, you'll see Onega Lake. That's the second largest lake in Europe.
Lenin Street is the main street in Petrozavodsk and it leads to the Lake Onega. It's the second largest lake in Europe and through it you can get to Kizhi, the famous wooden ensemble on the island in Russia. There are sculptures on the embankment that were donated to the city from the twin cities over the years, for which the embankment is called a museum. The most famous one is the Fisherman, two metal elders donated by an American city from Minnesota. And of course here in the capital I started trying the cuisine of the region, kalitka and northern food. Kalitka is an open pie with berry filling, traditional with porridge.
I was hungry and I decided to visit a special cafe where some food is served by a small toy train. Let me show you.
And in this cafe, a real train, which reminds of the one I'll take in a few days, brought me a kalitka. There are trucks through the entire room, and ordering certain dishes you can choose a delivery by train, which brings food to your table like this. In addition to kalitka, you can find northern food in local cafes, such as lohikeito, a Finnish traditional creamy salmon soup. on the second day of my travel, a heavy snowfall began and the city was transformed. It snows a lot in Petrozavodsk and it looks magical with it. The city is surrounded by water and forest, and the forest is right inside the city. From any suburb you can get into a real forest. The air is clean and the views are amazing. It feels like the city and old worries have been left somewhere far, far away. Squirrel Island Park charmed me. I was hoping to find squirrels here, but it was snowing and instead of squirrels I got into a real winter fairy tale. This year there is little snow in the middle part of Russia, but here I managed to get on a very good day and even visit a real Karelian forest without living far from the city center.
That's the real Karelian forest here, right in the center of the city. And this looks amazing, like a magic forest from fairy tale.
Nearby I noticed a very photogenic area of Soviet grey buildings. The local climate made it even more grey and gloomy, and in the Russian north it looks even more mystical.
This is how the suburb district of Petrozavodsk looks like. The Soviet blocks and total grey color.
Mystical things in Karelia are not only grey blocks but also local hobbies. An exhibition of snow and ice sculptures Hyperborea is taking place in February right on the embankment of Lake Ladoga. Huge blocks of ice are being turned into something incredible. I caught the moment when, despite the snowfall, the craftsmen were sharpening their ideas out of ice for the second day in a row. But I didn't see the result, because the next day I went to the Sortavala town. Sortavala is a small town and it's easy to get around on foot. It's a quiet corner of Finnish architecture and beautiful Karelian nature.
To be honest, the main reason to visit Karelia region for me is to ride on a special retro train, and the uniqueness of this train is the steam locomotive and decorated train cars. I'll show you this train later, and now let's explore the center of Sortavala town.
Sortavala is a town of 3 states and the most finished town in Russia. It changes hands many times and at various times belonged to Sweden, Finland and Russia. There are dozens of houses built by Finnish architects more than 100 years ago. The architectural heritage is what makes Sortavala so impressive. I arrived here at night and while I was looking for a place to have dinner, I'm surprised that right in the town I could see the stars in the black sky. It feels like you're in a village but far to the north. The next day in the morning I went to mountain Pasanavore to observe the train that I'll take tomorrow. Now the most important entertainment in the town is the Ruskeala Express. This is a humming, smoking and whistling steam locomotive, the only one retro steam train in Russia running daily, stylized for the 9th and 20th centuries.
I am on Pasa Mountain, and that's a great viewpoint to see the train that goes from Sortavala to Ruskeala Mountain Park. We'll see the train inside a little bit later in this video, but now I'll show you the view of the train passing by from the height. The road to the peak of the mountain is decorated with such lanterns.
From the mountain you can watch the morning train depart for Ruskeala Park. And from this height the train looks tiny, as though it's the very train to Hogwarts School. The mountain is notable not only for its beautiful views of the passing train. In fact, it was here that the first settlements were located long before the founding of the town. There are many information boards in the park telling about the Pasa settlement, which probably was here in Viking times. The Sami and ancient people of northern Europe lived here. On the territory, archaeologists found bone needles, iron and stone arrowheads. The park itself is very modern and the road leading to the top is decorated with lamps. In the town itself, there are many unusual buildings by Finnish architects in the center. Wooden houses have been preserved and there are even unusual school buildings. On the suburbs of the town, Soviet architecture is next to wooden buildings dating back to Finnish times. It's only because of the Soviet houses that this town looks like Russian ones, and without that you can't tell at first glance. From the local park on the mountain, you can see that there is no high buildings in the town. These are very cute little houses in a winter fairy tale. And from the top, everything looks at the palm of your hand, as though I got into a toy snowy globe.
From this mountain viewpoint, the whole city is just on your hand.
And finally came the day I'm going to ride that very train. On the way to the station, I managed to catch the departure of an earlier train. Just a couple of seconds and a whole machine of iron and steam flies in front of you. The station on the train path is decorated with beautiful signs, and the conductors are dressed in winter uniforms, just like in the imperial days of the Russian Empire. There's everything to immerse yourself in a real fairy tale. And of course the train itself, a black one with a red Soviet star, is about to leave.
That's the train that looks like the train that goes to Hogwarts from platform 9 and 3/4.
All this reminds of Station 9 and 3/4 from Harry Potter universe. There are several types of carriages on the train: economy class, first class carriage, and dining car. Most of all, I like the last one. Here you can eat, look at the luxurious interior, or listen to the piano playing in the evening. The train is heading to Ruskeala Mountain Park, and the whole trip takes about an hour, but the train is deliberately traveling slower so that passengers can enjoy this atmosphere.
Let's explore what they have in this. There's only Russian language, and there's a history about mountainous park Ruskeala, about this train, and how you can buy tickets here. And also this description about all classes in this train.
Upon arrival at the park, don't rush to leave the station, because in 5 minutes the train begins to turn around on a special platform. And then it will wait here until the evening to take everyone back to Sortavala. Previously, marble was mined in Ruskeala, which was mostly used in the construction of palaces, fountains, and metro stations in St. Petersburg. But then the quarry gradually filled up with natural waters. And now it's a unique park around the flooded marble quarry. You can walk alone on a hiking trail, or to observe from a boat on the water that you can take in summer. Here it's possible to see marble in section very close.
This where marble was used for building either Kazan and many other cathedrals in St. Petersburg, like this very marble.
Also, you can walk through small caves or visit a real tunnel that leads to an underground lake. We were given hard hats at the entrance because the tunnel has very low ceilings. It's also colder here than upstairs, and even in summer the temperatures are below zero.
And have you ever seen something like that? Marble, frozen lake, and this.
Satisfied and happy after a walk through the winter forest, I headed back to the station, where the train back to Sortavala was waiting for me.
It was so freezing outside today that my water in the bottle just frozen.
I wanted to learn more about the nature of Karelia Republic, so the next day I went on a trip to Lake Ladoga to see the Ladoga skerries. Skerries are a multitude of small islands connected by narrow straits. Sometimes they are called a small analog of the Norwegian fjords, but the difference is that the fjords are bays and skerries are islands. The word skerries is of Scandinavian origin and means a rock in the sea. Lake Ladoga can be considered as an European Lake Baikal because it's the largest freshwater body in Europe. In winter, a part of the lake freezes over and opens up the possibility to travel along it on such hovercraft. There were 6 people in our team and we went to land on a small island right in Lake Ladoga. Along the way we saw a frozen waterfall, which is really unusual to see in winter. And then the conquest of the island began.
And here is real moss growing. It's really soft when you're walking on it. The weather is so harsh here, just look at this tree.
Next to the open water there was a very strong wind that almost blew me off my feet. It was bitterly cold because of the humidity, but it was worth it, because the nature here is magical. This is an unspoiled island of the northern nature of the Karelian Republic. Climbing to the highest point of the island, we watch as the frozen part of the lake ends and passes into the open Lake Ladoga. I was struck by how thick blocks of ice cover the surface of the water, and moreover it's pure ice, very transparent. felt like I was back in the Murmansk region on the edge of the earth in Russia. Here you forget about the passage of time, you're fascinated by nature and its greatness, and only the cities and fabulous terrain are the small things that connects this place with your familiar life. There is cold, wind, and the elements around, and at such moments I imagine myself exploring the unknown. That's why I adore the Russian North. It's always boundless and charming for me. And you feel like just a little man in front of something big, powerful, and eternal.